and it's about time we get that subframe in that Mini. Let's crack on. Hey Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back, it's part 10.
Right guys, we are almost back to square one. We're almost back to it just being a radius arm job. As you can see, I've got the bits laid out just for reassembly now. Still need to do these radius arm pins. Obviously I've done the ones on kit, so I need to get these done and get this hammerited now. But that doesn't stop me getting the subframe back in, so I think I'm going to do that without the arms on, just because it's lighter and easier for me to put up inside the body working on my own. So I've got just cleaned these up and painted the pins and the mounting brackets as well. Just wire wheeled them, cleaned them up, 3 coats of Hammerite Smooth and some new bushes. Now I'm sure there'll be arguments for, arguments against. These are polyurethane bushes rather than rubber, although they are quite pliable. They're not like they're not really hard polyurethane, because some are. These are meant to be a direct replacement for original rubber bushes. I'm sure obviously rubber has slightly different properties to polyurethane, but I want them to last really. I don't want to be replacing them again, so poly bushes are pretty good like that. But you get some of the ones that are intended for race car use and they're too hard. And at the back here I've just got the high-lows, just clean them up. Don't know whether to paint these or just leave them bare aluminium, and obviously new suspension knuckles as well. These high-lows actually take reinforced suspension knuckles. The hole on the end here, or the pin, the radius arm, sorry, the suspension knuckle pin is wider on these. I think they're about 14mm, and a standard radius arm they're about 12.5. Sorry, a standard suspension knuckle is about 12.5. I did order the wrong ones the first time round as well. No one's perfect. So we've got these mounting points on now, and you notice I've covered over the hole at the back here. But before I've done that, I'll just show you on this side. Obviously that's a nice water trap there, so that's just all been waxed inside. I've done it both sides, and we'll cover that one up now. So that's a subframe ready to go back in now. We've just put some minimal stuff on, so the brake hoses both sides, brake pipe. We put these rubber blocks on. Wasn't quite sure how to stick them on, so I've got some Gorilla Glue. But not sure about that. I don't know, it's very good, but in the end I've just tried some double-sided sticky on them, and that does seem to hold it pretty well, so I think I'll go with that. And then finally, just before it goes up inside, we just wax inside here, both sides. So ignore what I said about the double-sided sticky on the rubber pads, because it didn't work that great. They were a bit loose. So what I used in the end, it was this Gorilla Glue stuff, and that has set on there really, really nicely. There's no way in the world they're coming off. It's a bit strange, this Gorilla Glue. It is like, I'm sure it's the same stuff as expanding foam. It's activated by water, but it really, really sticks on there. It does look a little bit messy, not keen on that to be honest, but that is up between the subframe and the boot floor. Never going to see that again, so ain't too fussed. But like I say, I don't want them dropping off.
So it's in. It's all mounted up. I can get that horrible bit of wood out the bottom now. Supported properly on the subframe. And then yeah, not much left to do really. Radius arms in. Job done. 5-minute job. And there's the radius arms. They were obviously shot blasted, reamed out, new radius arm pins, so sort of fully overhauled. And that's had 3 coats of Hammerite Smooth now, so they're looking pretty shiny, almost as good as when they're powder coated. Feeling much better about this. We're putting stuff back together now, so I like that. We can make it all shiny, put some shiny stainless steel bolts on, make it like new again. It's a bit alike. I don't like the rusty bits. So just quickly, gonna paint the tops of these suspension cones just because they're bare metal. You'd have thought they'd have slapped a bit of paint on, wouldn't you? But they'll look horrible when they rust up. So we'll paint them. I think I'm going to leave them as they are, just bare aluminium. They were never painted originally. And there's the radius arms. They are still drying. Got Hammerite Smooth right on it. Takes forever to dry that stuff, especially in a cold garage. And then down here we've got the handbrake quadrants and pins. Now, I'm not the sort of person to buy everything brand new. I prefer, in fact I get a lot of satisfaction actually out of saving stuff, restoring stuff and making it go again. So I could buy a nice set of specialist components or KAD handbrake quadrants, but don't want to keep it original. So I know by the time I've probably cleaned them up and painted them, time I spent, I could have probably bought some new ones, but there's a little bit of satisfaction from saving stuff. Quick progress shot, so I thought I'd just show you what's going on in the sort of rebuild process. So it's all getting cleaned up and kind of serviced, I suppose, as we go back together. So like the brake drums, they're just cleaned up inside, the mating surfaces, and just a slight light rub over with a bit of sort of 80 grit, wet and dry. That roughens up the surface again, so if it's dead shiny, if you're putting it back together or putting it back together with new brakes, you don't want it dead shiny. You want some cross hatching on there to allow the brakes to bed in a little bit. They will go shiny afterwards. So just painted the outsides, cleaned up the spacers, again cleaned up the mounting faces on the hubs. Brake shoes, although we're reusing the old ones, they're in pretty good nick, so just giving them a clean up, and again bit of a roughen up with something like 80 grit, wet and dry. Hub covers, just painted them up now, the donuts. And as far as cleaning bits, what I tend to use is gunk, works pretty well. 5 litre container, just a couple of litres of gunk in there. And yeah, I usually just leave it, chuck the bits in there. Sometimes I leave them for a few days and the dirt just falls off, pretty much wipes off afterwards. And then I usually have another one just for nuts and bolts, put that there, but then we're replacing most of the nuts and bolts with stainless steel ones, so probably not going to need to clean up much, but we're getting there. I need to do the back plates next, so the back plates will get cleaned up and painted, I think. They're not too bad at the moment, but one arm just to give them a good clean up. Right guys, while I'm quite literally waiting for paint to dry on the other bits, I thought I'd just show some of the detail I'm going into with this. And some of you might watch this and just think, do you know what, mate, just go and buy a wheel cylinder. It's only about 7-8 quid, I think. But I've actually, while I've got it apart, I've taken the wheel cylinders apart, both sides, and I've stripped them down, cleaned them up. I'm glad I did, because they'd just got to the point where they'd just started to get a little bit of corrosion inside. And you wouldn't expect them to corrode from the inside out because they've got brake fluid in them, but brake fluid is hygroscopic, so it absorbs water.
So that's why you should never leave brake fluid cap off for a long time, or if you've got an old pot of brake fluid, just throw it away, because it will absorb water into the fluid, and that lowers the boiling point of the brake fluid. So what will happen, because there's moisture in it, it will boil earlier, and of course if you get boiling brake fluid, that then introduces air into the system and you get spongy brakes. So that's why you should replace brake fluid regularly, but also the moisture in the system will corrode the components from the inside out. So inside here, just where the pistons were sitting for the wheel cylinder, there was just a light bit of corrosion behind them. So I've just taken that out and I've cleaned it inside just with some very fine 1200 grit emery paper, and it hasn't got to the point where it's pitted the surface or anything like that, so that's fine. Just cleaned out. Obviously it's had a little bit of a spray to make it look cleaner. These are the two pistons that fit inside the wheel cylinders, so you'll commonly be used to sort of seeing that view where you connect the brakes up to. Then there's obviously the dust seals which go on the end as well. So the pistons, there's one each side, they both fit in there, and each side as well you'll have a rubber seal. Now it's quite important to get that rubber seal the correct way round. So if you imagine the piston goes in that way, you want it so the open part of the seal, the wider part of the seal, is towards the middle of the wheel cylinder. And the reason you have it like that is as you apply pressure, the fluid applies pressure, it pushes this seal outwards and just improves the seal on between the piston and the actual wheel cylinder housing itself. If you were to put it the other way around, it would just pour out fluid. Now, I did see some debate going on with William Murphy and about applying greases to rubber components. Really important on brake components. If you put grease on this, not the correct type grease, it will cause that rubber to swell and it will be no good. I don't have the correct type grease for this, unfortunately, and if I went out and bought some, it would probably be cheaper just to buy a pair of wheel cylinders. But brake fluid itself, so that's the fluid it works in. So all I'm going to do is just dip it in some brake fluid, put the seal in, and then we're done. This is quite a tight fit, this. See if I can get it. And you want to do it by hand, you don't want to use a screwdriver or anything, because you will end up just damaging the seal. So we'll put a bit of brake fluid on both sides just to act as a bit of lubricant to help get the pistons in. They should slide in quite nice. Yeah, it goes in beautifully. That. Want clean hands when we do this as well, because obviously brake fluid will take paint off, especially freshly painted paint like on this wheel cylinder as well. So there we go, both those pistons meet in the middle. Pop the rubber seals on now. That's easier said than done. There we go. So one refurbished wheel cylinder. So just laying out everything to go back together, and I just noticed something. So I took these radius arm brackets off. They have been painted already, but as you can see, they miss bits where the subframe's bolted together, so they're obviously bolted on and then they paint the subframe. So I thought I'd take them off. Those will get hammerited. But what I did notice, I don't know whether you'll see very well on the camera, but where this hole's been drilled, this one was worse actually. The metal or swarf, it's not a swarf is it, but where the drill bit's gone through, it's left quite a pronounced step, much worse on the other side. So I've had to just go over that with a flat wheel and just grind it off, because otherwise that's going to make fitting the radius arm in the right pain, because it's just going to catch on that corner. So a bit disappointing that for a heritage frame and bracket, but it's no biggie really. One to look out for though.